Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. The podcast where I'm flying solo and this one might go down in flames. But unfortunately, Iowa Joe is sick this week. We wish him the best. We hope he's back healthy soon. Um, Kind of goes hand in hand with where the Packers are at this point of the season. The Packers went out with a wet trombone fart to close out the 2024 season. They finished with an 11-6 record, and they will be the seventh seed. They go to face the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, the 3:30 Central Time game, and I guess we'll go over where we. Well, I guess I'll go over how we got there. Um, you know, this game, this was a Murphy's Law situation where, LaFleur set the table that they wanted this to be a get right game. They wanted to reestablish some offensive rhythm, get the passing game going, and just have a crisp, mistake free game. And none of that occurred from basically the moment the ball was kicked off on Sunday. And honestly, you know, this team hasn't lost games to bad teams this season, but they've towed the line several times this season in that regard. The game against Jacksonville, the first Bears game, they stuck their hand in the fire to see if it was hot, and unfortunately, week 18 they found out it was indeed hot and got burned. We'll start with the worst of the news. Unfortunately, Christian Watson is done for the season. LaFleur gave the update that he did indeed tear his ACL. The most concerning part of it is that some of the updates are saying that there is additional damage, and obviously no two injuries are alike, but that quote unquote additional damage is the part that did David Bakhtiari's career in, not the ACL itself. So we'll have to see how Watson recovers from this surgery. Guys that are alien athletes like he is, there's any kind of extra cartilage damage or other tissue or ligament, tendon, whatever, any structural issues. That's the kind of stuff that leads to just loss of athleticism, career trajectory altering. So, the one to reference for Packers fans is when Javon Walker blew his knee out back in the 2005 season. And obviously, I don't expect the Packers to trade Watson like they did Walker back in 2006, but Walker had a couple good seasons after the fact, but his knee was just degenerative at that point. So you hate to write the book on Watson, but all you can do is cross your fingers and that he'll be back at some point next season. My best guess is Thanksgiving is the day to look at. I know some will say like guys return sooner than 9 months and blah blah blah, but it is January, and this is a pretty serious injury based on what you know LaFleur and sources have reported to guys like Ian Rappaport. And to address the elephant in the room of whether Watson should or shouldn't have played, um, you know LaFleur said that Watson requested that if he practiced on Friday, he be in the game. LaFleur also stated that if Dobbs had not gotten a cold, they probably would have sat Watson. It's just an unfortunate situation. My stance on it is they needed to get rhythm in this passing game. You hadn't seen a crisp, efficient outing since the Seattle game. The New Orleans game was a blowout, shutout victory, but it was on the back of the run game. The pass game was really inconsistent then. It was really inconsistent against Minnesota, and that's what cost them in the first half of that game. Where you go down 20-3 at one point before you really get in the game, and then this week in Week 18, you just never really have a chance. Watson and then Love gets injured on the same drive, and it just really sucks for Watson. He looked like he really had the soft tissue injuries under control this season, and then he goes down. He has the knee bruise a week ago, and then misses the Minnesota game, and then just this, just catastrophe against the Bears. So um, I know some will say that it was a mistake that he played, and he tore it Sunday. He could have tore it in Philadelphia. Maybe he doesn't tear it, but if you play it overly cautious, they might not see him again this season. And on the regards of the team needs to protect the player from himself angle, this team has not played a full 60 minutes of good football basically all season. They've had a good offensive game, a good defensive game, but overall they haven't played a full complementary game that just all sides of the ball contribute to a win. And from that regard, I do think there was something to gain by playing him in week 18. Yeah, maybe the seeding wouldn't have mattered and all that kind of stuff. Washington probably still wins if Watson doesn't get hurt, but you guys, a lot of people think about it too binary, and that's just not how this works. There's multiple human beings in motion, and they have to be in sync. Watson missed the game. Your pass game hasn't been good, and you got to try and kickstart it. And you know, the same people who are saying like, "Oh, they should have been more conservative. They should have protected him." If the Packers come out and have a first half like they do against Minnesota, you'd all be just as or more pissed that LaFleur didn't start everyone and get the passing game figured out against Chicago. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. It sucks for Watson. It sucks for the team. You just wish him the best and hope that he can make a strong return in 2025 and that his career isn't just altered by this thing. So that's that. On the Love front, the Jordan Love front, it sounds like it was a funny bone hit when he got thrown into the turf after he got the ball to Jacobs. LaFleur did intimate that he could have gone back in the game, but they decided to be just extra cautious with it. I do think that's more not wanting the ball to just fall out of his hand because his hand is numb. It's a stinger. You have nerve impulses going down your hand. So they played it safe there. And then two more on Dobbs. They do expect him back this week. He's already back in the building. And another good stroke of good news is Quay Walker um, looks to be in line to come back against the Eagles, and that would be a big one. The big news on the Eagles side is that Nick Sirianni is still not able to give an update regarding Jalen Hurts' progress through concussion protocol. And like we discussed, when Quay had his concussion earlier in the season, when Dobbs had his concussion, that caused him to miss the Miami and Detroit games, there is no linear progression for recovery through concussion protocol. None of these is the same. Everyone's brain is a little different. And I mean, look at Andre Dillard. They didn't know he was concussed until he popped up on the injury report the following Wednesday, and he's missed 2 games in a row with a concussion. So um, it remains to be seen. And kind of the same thing that we're talking about, should the Packers have tried to get in a passing rhythm? Jalen Hurts, even if he does start, he won't have thrown a pass in almost 2 weeks of time. So, I know Philly is one of the best teams we're going to potentially face in the playoffs, but that is a potential issue that they'll have to work through. Um, and if for whatever reason he can't play and they're down to Tanner McKee, this is a very winnable game for Green Bay, despite the deficiencies at corner. But we'll go into our game review. Um, not a lot of positives to take out of Sunday's game. The big one, though, is I know it ended sourly for them, but the defense really did bow its back for the majority of this game. They held the Bears under 300 yards of offense. I know time of possession looks like the Packers won it, but it was a really deceiving near 50-50 split. You look at the Packers drives in the second half and they weren't holding on to the ball at all. They were barely averaging 5 yards a series. So that means like you sort of get a first down and then you're like, 4 and out, 5 and out kind of thing. So, after halftime, these are the Packers drives. So 5 plays after the interception, the McKinney interception, fumble. Um, 8 plays, turnover on downs. 4 plays, punt. 4 plays, touchdown. 4 plays, field goal. So, you know, you're not possessing the ball 5 minutes, 9 minutes. So yeah, in the second half of the game, the Packers are barely at 12 minutes of time of possession, and the defense held out really as long as it could until Chicago breaks a screen pass and then gets the game winning field goal, and we'll talk about that later on. But you know, it's hard to put much on this defense when they're put behind the eight ball because special teams lays a dud, and gives up a punt return touchdown on an inexplicable play. Um, Jaden Reed fumbles the ball in plus territory, and a touch they on those quick change the defense gives up a touchdown, and then um, they create an interception, and then the Packers immediately fumble the ball back because Malik Willis digs into his worst habits. Get the ball back immediately after that, turnover on downs, and then you know the dam could only hold for so long, even against this kind of a meh offense. Because as bad as the Bears are on offense, these kind of I call them high school. These kind of high school offenses, they um, they tend to as much as they can be stopped relatively easily. If you're off by one detail, you're screwed on that play, and that's what happened on that DJ Moore touchdown. Is they block it up well enough. Javon Bullard takes a bad angle, and it's a touchdown. But that's what happens when you don't. Your offense, which is supposed to be the strength of your team, leaves your defense out to dry. Um, and some people complaining about the lack of pressure. Again, the Bears were playing 1-2 throw, and it's really hard to generate pressure in those scenarios. Um, you know, I thought Edge Cooper had an okay game. I know some will say he had all the tackles for loss, but he again, he's supposed to be this dynamic athlete that allows you to do special things in the pocket. I know Caleb Williams is also a special athlete, but Edge has not made a significant play as a QB spy on Caleb Williams, and that's supposedly a big reason he's here. I know he's a rookie; he's got to learn from it, but that's two games that he's went like 0 for 5 or maybe 1 for 6, but just disappointing to see there because he had some chances to get him off the field, but and then the final play, unfortunately for Halfley, is just trying to do too much. But again, I have a hard time putting that on the defense because your defense creates a fumble and your offense does the least amount of work it could have. LaFleur doesn't burn 30 seconds off the clock when he could have. They kicked the field goal to go up 22-21, but in a weird way, you lose the game because you're not playing for the touchdown. You're playing like for a field goal in that scenario. So I thought most of the stuff you saw from the defense was good. Kitano Ladapo got his first major snaps of the season. Um, it allowed Halfley to be a little more multiple with his other safeties. Hope you know. I don't know how much you can expect out of the Packers. I don't know if Evan Williams will be back, but I do hope Oladapo continues to get snaps next week. And whether Quay is back or not next week, something that Joe and I talked about last week is let Hopper play. Again, Wilson, McDuffie, they're warriors. They're tough, meathead football players, but they just can't do anything useful in space. They're just kind of there to be there. They're speed bumps more than they are effective players. So um, just get as much athleticism on the field as you can, especially if McKee is starting. I can understand being a little more on your P's and Q's if Hertz is in and stuff, but really hope you have Quay back playing edge more of this now. I think he played over 90% of the game for the second time in 2 weeks. But you need athleticism in space, especially because you're down in the secondary. Halfley needs to be able to do more things in the middle of the field with his linebackers. Another solid game from Carrington Valentine, who created the fumble that should have won you the game. Um, but again, um, One of the things, everyone's going to point out the final play that he gave up, but that's not totally on Valentine. The only thing he can do there is tackle DJ Moore at the line of scrimmage and, live with a illegal contact or something at that point. But it's unfortunate, but that's when the line for this Bears game was 10.5 for the Packers, and you play a shitty game and you let a bad team hang around and you lose the margins. That's what leaves yourself susceptible to. So obviously, you'd like to see Carrington be a little more competitive there, but he has no inside help because the Bears throw this funky formation and the Packers have three safeties at depth. So um, you're setting Carrington up for failure, and you're basically counting on a bad throw. Um, but Kenny got the interception off the double pass that never should have been thrown. But like I said, it didn't get turned into anything. On the offensive side, it was nice to see that the run game was still viable. Um, but passing wise, they just couldn't get anything going. And for all the people, Malik Willis, he's done a lot of improvement this season as a passer. You can see the strides he's made from his time in Tennessee to his time in Green Bay, but his worst habits cost the Packers this game, holding on to the ball for eternity instead of getting the ball out of his hands to his playmakers. Um, he took a sack on the drive that ended on downs. He took another bad sack on the following drive, and then um, yeah, the strip sack. That's a play that absolutely can't happen. The pressure is coming off of his right side, so his vision side, and he just never feels the pressure, and that's got to be a step up and run or a step up and hit the hot route or something. You've got to know where your protection is set, and you've got to know where you're going to go with the ball in those situations. So, going on to the stale stuff. Honestly, not too much was stale about this game because it either was some good and a lot of bad. Um, I guess there were a few more penalties than you'd like in this game. Um, you know, 5 for 45 yards when you're dealing with some of the stuff you were at the beginning of the season isn't nearly as bad, but it's still not an ideal position to be in. And you want to just be better at this than Packers showed. But so yeah, you just hope that's not a sign of things to come. All right, and on to the moldy. So uh, there's a whole multitude of places to start with this, but the first one we'll go to is Lafleur, and I said this on Blue Sky after the game and on Twitter. Lafleur's biggest problem as a head coach is that he doesn't have mediocre or subpar games as a head coach. He's either good to great or he's absolutely setting the flunking grade. Um, and there was just a cavalcade of mistakes on his part. Time clock management, as we said, after the Carrington forced fumble, he had a chance to run down the clock more on a couple of the plays, but chose to quick snap instead. The timeout that allowed Chicago to set up their final offensive play was really, really bad. And then not, doing something to get another stoppage of play in to reset the down or anything like that. And so that's one of my things is as a defender, you have to be aware that like if something's not right, someone has to just take an encroachment penalty. Like 5 yards isn't going to kill you in that situation, and it's better off than giving up the 15-yard gain that they did that set up the game-winning field goal. So you got to understand where you are in a game situation, and um, but Lafleur's got to be better than this. You know, he had to challenge a poorly overturned play, which was good, but it felt like he just kind of was shell shocked after the Watson and Love injuries on offense, and then even the final drive. So he doesn't run the play clock down on, I believe it was second down. And then on the third down play, you're third and three, I think you are. And he doesn't have Willis at all involved with the play. And I understand that Willis is, he too has like has hit his funny bone on the previous drive, the touchdown drive. But you've got to have him in shotgun to give at least the threat of him keeping the ball on that third down play, because putting him under center is just a dead giveaway that you're running it to the running back and doing nothing else. You've got to create some confusion for those second level defenders and have Willis give the look of a zone read. And by not doing so, again, you're just simplifying the game for the opponent. And your team's just not playing well enough to overcome those kind of deficiencies. And like I said, we all know LaFleur is smart. A lot of people were just singing him his praises 3 weeks ago, but as much as you're going to sing him his praises, he deserves to be criticized when he has bonehead games like this as well. So um, he's got to be better. Like I said, you hope that there's an element of shell shock to this one, and that in the playoffs he'll be better off, but um, can't can't continue to be an issue like it was on Sunday. Of course, it would help if his assistant head coach wasn't just carrying a title in, you know, for vanity's sake. Um, Bisaccia, his unit was just absolutely piss poor. Um, the punt return they give up, Bisaccia is yelling at Whelan after the play, but someone on that team needs both your gunners are running in the wrong direction. All your trail players are running in the wrong direction. I get that maybe they was called as a punt right, but you're supposed to have mechanisms for rerouting your coverage guys, and not just Whelan yelling which way he punted the ball, but having negative awareness as a whole unit. They had multiple kick returns, where kick coverages where guys were out of their lanes and gave up returns. Um, Matt Orzik continues to be an eyesore. He Two bad long snaps, which seems like a low for him in a game. The first one was on the first punt where, luckily, Chicago wasn't rushing, and Whelan was able to recover the ball. You know how hard it is to long snap it over a 6'5" guy? Like, that's just inexplicable for a supposed seasoned veteran long snapper. And then on what could have been the game winning field goal, again, a high snap that Whelan has to bail Orzik's ass out of. So uh, I'm just going to put it nicely. I hope Bisaccia gets hired by someone that's LaFleur's out, because it's just not working. And then the cherry on top of that is Jaden Reed at punt returner, who is both risk averse in terms of he doesn't read his blockers well and will fair catch when he's got 15 plus yards of space, or if he is catching the punt, he's double catching more than he should be. And I don't know who on this roster would be better, but honestly, just put Keyshawn back there. I know Keyshawn's had his own punt fielding issues, but you're just giving away yards with Reed back there. It's not everyone. I've had some people point out it's not Amari Rogers, but that's not your benchmark. That is that is a line in the sand that's sinking. Not something to be like, well, he's better than Amari, so he's fine. Back no, like, you're deficient on defense in certain areas. You've got issues on offense, quick starting. You need every bullet in your pocket you need every round in your mag to be firing. And if Reed is gonna, frankly, look scared back on punt returns, you've got to replace him, and that is also on Bisaccia's back. So basically, the only part of his game that worked was Whelan and I guess McManus. But the parts of the thing where Orzik was his selection, Reed is at some point his selection to be the punt returner. That's, again, like I said, these are multi-season long issues that we're running into here, and not sure what he's seeing or being paid to see or not to see, but it was just really disappointing that we're this far down the rabbit hole and we're still having the same problems. So, just a banner day at the office for Bisaccia. Just um, you and you. This is what happens when you have two phases of your team playing poorly. You'll lose to bad teams because you're 66% deficient. That's losing football, and especially when the Bears they are the one with the non-offensive touchdown. You're gonna lose that game 9 times out of 10. The Packers were lucky to be in position to win this one, and there's a lot of internal review that's got to go. Like I said, I hope that fate, has it where Bisaccia will get a good interviews. I know he interviews well. He, has that sort of Dan Campbell energy and stuff. And I hope that the Packers kind of have an easy way out of that one because it's just not working. And the ideal would be the the Saints sign Bisaccia to be their next head coach, and LaFleur can go and get Darren Rizzi, the guy who he should have been allowed to sign in 2019 when he first came on as head coach. The Packers might have a Super Bowl in their back pocket if that was allowed, but you know, no time like now to fix a wrong or a couple of wrongs, but um, that's it. And then one final moldy dud from the game. Replay assist. Tried its best to take away a Musgrave reception, and it is absolutely inexplicable. And it's bad when Mike Pereira, who is paid to be a quote unquote expert, but is still in the sanctity of the brotherhood of referees, and for him to flat out say, I have no idea what New York was looking for, that they screwed up bad. And for them to rule that pass incomplete when there was nothing, and I mean nothing, that gave the hint that that ball touched the ground, that is an inexcusable mistake. And like Pereira was arguing, I know LaFleur had to challenge it, but and I'm not sure what ended up happening with the official ruling and stuff, but he should not have been charged with his first challenge for correcting the league's mistake. That's the kind of thing that it just makes people question what the hell is going on with referees and New York City and all that kind of stuff. Outside of that, felt like it was a pretty decently called game, but that's just one of those, like, you can't even say it's the human error margin because it wasn't any of the refs on the ground. They called it a catch. And it was the guys with slow mo replay who were like, no, 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 like, overturn that. And that's just inexplicably poor, um, inexcusable, and it can't happen again. Like, I know it will because the NFL is stupid like that, but that's one of those where if it happened to, like, you know, the Lions or the Vikings or the Eagles or the Chiefs, there would be an immaculate uproar about it. But because it's in a game that quote unquote doesn't matter, no one's gonna blink. No one's gonna bat an eye about it. But I'd never seen that before. And yeah, like I said, I was with Pereira where it's like Fleur should get his challenge back because that's hogwash. But uh, that's, like I said, Murphy's Law. You get all of that. You give up dumb punt return for a touchdown. You don't move the ball on offense. You lose Christian Watson to a really unfortunate injury. Love goes down with an elbow stinger. Willis can't complete the 2-point conversion because he suffers his own elbow stinger. You don't manage the clock well on your final drive, and then the defense just cracks at the end because it's been, like I said, at that point 17-12 in time of possession, and that 12 is a really deceiving 12 minutes because it's not a the drives the Packers are on, they're not long. It's not like they had one like 10 play drive that milked like 6 minutes. No, they're 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, five, I think was the long on the turnover on downs. And so like you're not even possessing the ball. You're playing ping pong with it. You're just sending it right back to the Bears. And um I know LaFleur after the game said that there were some impassioned speeches. I really do hope it was people on the defense basically calling out the other 35 players on the team who did nothing but get glorified conditioning work, because it was just really disappointing to see how this team played overall. Like I said, the defense played 95% a pretty good game in my eye. And unfortunately, they're the ones holding the bill because they were the last ones on the field, but they were hung out to dry, particularly in the second half of this game by this offense that refused to do anything with any of the multiple opportunities that the defense gave them. So, really disappointing game from the Packers. Obviously, it has to be for you to lose to the Bears at this point in the season. Um, Going into Philadelphia, like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. The majority of the hopes hang on, will Jalen Hurts play? And if he does, what does he look like? If he doesn't, can Green Bay scrape together enough stops on defense to give their offense time to get in rhythm? Losing Watson hurts your ability to attack this Philadelphia defense. But everyone's pointing out like, oh, Green Bay's EP, loves EPA on man coverage, passing plays is slightly positive with Watson on the field and pretty negative with him off the field. But to me, that's just a sign that LaFleur needs to scheme his game plan around what should be his two man coverage beaters in Musgrave and Kraft. I don't care how good of an athlete a linebacker is, shouldn't be able to cover either of those guys, especially Kraft. Musgrave a little bit easier because he's more straight line-ish, but still, um, those are two guys with their athleticism and movement skills. They should be able to create separation. And then you build the Jaden Reed looks off of those two guys. You use Dobbs as that second hinge point that to pull primary coverage to allow Reed to run into voided areas. Use Melton as a deep threat. Um, Use Heat's ability to high point the ball. Like this is one of those games where LaFleur can't be afraid to throw the kitchen sink, because what have you got to lose? Your season ends if you don't win this game, and for all those, keeping things in the back pocket, stuff like that. Um, you know, this is kind of it. Not this is kind of it. This is it. You win or you go home, and Green Bay is not going to play a home game the rest of these playoffs. That's the that's the dice. That's the way the cookie crumbles when you refuse to win important games on your schedule. Um, and it's going to be an uphill battle. Their path is going to be uh, Philadelphia. If they win, they'll play the Lions, and if they happen to beat that, they're going to play someone from the 3, 5, 6 side of the bracket. So um, it'll be a tall order. This team, some people are saying the season's over. Why play the game and stuff? I already pointed out why you play it. Hertz might not play. If he does, he still could be a little out of it. Sure, the Packers could get swamped, but there's a old adage that Vegas knows, and Vegas has this at least as of now, they still have the spread as a 3.5 in favor of Philadelphia, which, given how these two teams are playing, that spread should be a lot bigger than that at this point. So the fact that Vegas is keeping it as close of a spread, yeah, see, it's 4 right now on ESPN Bet. The fact that it's within that much of a margin shows that you still don't know what exactly is going to go on. Um, in this one, there's question of who will play, um, and yeah, you'll have to, and also AJ Brown is dealing with the knee, and he'll probably be healthy and fine to go this week, but um, we'll see where that happens to go. Like I said, there's a lot of conditionals, but this team isn't playing the kind of efficient or proficient football that you should be expecting sunshine and rainbows from any preview. There's a path, and it's not solely dependent on Hurts not playing, Brown being injured or limited. It's not solely dependent on that. Those will help significantly in this scenario, but overall, you're the road dog for a reason, and a lot of it is because you haven't performed up to par in the big games. This team is still a top five team by DVOA. Obviously, losing Watson hurts in that regard, but um, there's some reasons to be optimistic about the Packers' chances. We've seen them score on this defense on a field that wasn't to their liking, seen them create negative plays that were in their advantage. And you've got to have some confidence that with Cooper playing more of the game, hopefully, like I said, Koye is back, as LaFleur kind of pointed to, that this was the whole plan, was to get him back, hopefully sooner, but if not, they would get him back for this week. um and it's you like I said, the door is not shut on the Packers winning this game. There's a path. It's a narrow path, and the Packers have been prone to slipping off and falling into the abyss this season in a big game. But um, if Love can get it going, that would be a massive, massive step in the right direction. You need this O line to play well. This is going to be a hostile environment. Um, Something that we talked about after the Minnesota game. Get to the line of scrimmage, get your play set, and be ready to snap the ball with 5 seconds left. That way you can use your hard count or quick snap, because they might be expecting you to snap the ball at 0 seconds. So um, you know, throw the kitchen sink if you're LaFleur. Same for Halfley. You've kind of put it on tape that you're going to be in this softer umbrella coverage. You're going to play it a little bit safer. You've got to throw in some man looks. Having Quay and Cooper on the field, and hopefully some, whether it's Oladapo or Hopper, having more athletic guys than you had in week one, taking up more of the snaps. You've got to utilize that. And I know that you're banged up in the secondary, but you've got to utilize whatever tools you've got in the chest and just kind of live with the results. I don't expect the pass rush to do too much this game. Simply, if Hurts plays, I don't expect the pass rush to do much, because they're going to be mush rushing to keep him in the pocket. You can't let him, especially if he's rusty because he hasn't played in a couple weeks. You can't let him get comfortable by running outside the pocket for easy throws, easy conversions. You got to keep him contained and eliminate his legs as part of the equation. So expect the Packers to do that, and um, just play the run better than you did in week one. They can do it. Like, I'm not going to talk myself into expecting the Packers to win, but like I said, they're down Jair. I get that. They're down Watson. I get that. But Love should play this game. He is due for a big postseason. He really is. Like, this season has been an absolute slog. Not all of it has been his fault necessarily. Yes, he can always play better, but no better time than now. Um, I'm not confident in the special teams. I do think that Halfley can draw some stuff up. He just has to, I don't want to say trust, but just live with what he's got, because he ain't getting better pieces now. That's got to wait to the offseason to see if he can. He's got to just make do with what he's got. And I hope we see a more aggressive game plan out of him, where he's not just relying on soft coverage and stuff, because it's not going to work against this Eagles offense, especially if Brown is any kind of healthy in this game. So you've got to be more aggressive. And on Packers on offense, trust who you are. Um, get Jacobs going, but also don't wait to get Love going in this game. I know that Lincoln Financial or whatever they call Philly Stadium now, I know it's a hostile environment, but it'll still be a better playing field than it was in Brazil early to start the season. So, um, and don't miss on your opportunities. You know what cost him in week one? You get two turnovers early in the game in Philadelphia's own end. You turn it into only 6 points. Can't have that happen. You've got to be scoring touchdowns if you get opportunities against this Eagles team, and they can be had. They really can. Like I know it was mainly because Hurts got injured, but their defense still gave up a lot to that Washington offense, and the Packers have similar pieces to that Washington offense. Like I said, LaFleur, be creative with your tight ends. Utilize Dobbs. Utilize Reed as a secondary playmaker that's playing off of the action of your tight ends and Dobbs running those digs and other kinds of primary routes. And get back to more heavy play action and stuff like that. Like I don't. I feel like LaFleur has gone so run heavy that parts of his counters off of the run actions, he's gotten away from those, and we've lost some of that in the offense of late. So we haven't seen a lot of his dagger concepts or the counters off of daggers. So a return to that would be nice, but um, yeah, like I said, it's a narrow path, but Green Bay has one, and they just got to take it 1 week at a time. Step one, get your offense figured out, get Love playing well. That'll be the biggest key to this game because if he's playing like he has the last 3 weeks, they don't have a chance in hell. Like it's as simple as that. But if you get a little, you get Love in rhythm, you get some movement from your receiving options, you can score on this Eagles defense. You still have enough talent, more than enough talent without Watson to do that. And you can create enough confusion on defense to get stops, get some turnovers, because Hertz will put the ball in harm's way. McKee is not necessarily good at taking care of the ball, and if Kenny Pickett plays, yeah, we all know what his career has been. So, um, just be aggressive. That's got to be the mantra. Like I know the coaching staff has said it at different points, but now is the time to really live and die by that. Because if you don't hear, you're never going to. So um, that's going to do it for us today. Like we said, main thing off the top, Joe. Hope you're feeling better soon, so that you're able to do the editing. This one's going to come out pretty raw because Joe usually handles that. I'll do my best with what I've got, but it's not going to have his same TLC on top of it. But Joe, hope you're feeling better. Everyone, please check out our website, ohanapackers.org. Check out our merch that Joe will be getting back to when he's not coughing a lung up at the moment. Check out our blog post. Carlos Silva is putting out new material every week. In the off season, Joe and I will probably be putting out our own material, and whenever the Packers season ends, whether it's this Sunday or hopefully in another month, another 5 weeks, we'll be putting together our draft series. So that'll be coming to fruition as well. Um, so keep an eye out for that. Please follow the podcast on your favorite social medias. At Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram, search Ohana Packers Edition on Facebook. Please follow the podcasts on your favorite podcasting app. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And whatever you're thinking, any comments you've got for us, please send them in. We want to make sure we're creating the content you're looking for. The Packers end the regular season about as poorly as you can, but you know what? It's 0-0 when they roll the ball out on Sunday, and you've punched your ticket to the postseason, and it's anyone's game at this point. Yes, the Packers are the underdog, but they're not as big of an underdog as you'd expect them to be with how good the Eagles have been and how poorly the Packers have played the last 2 weeks. So, like I said, there is a path, and we'll see if that the Packers, if Jordan Love and LaFleur can exploit it, or if it's going to be a short run this season. So, um, wishing Iowa Joe the best. I'm Mike Kawano. Go Pack Go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for OU. Know who wanna go.